Yesterday, Sayadaw spoke about the four guardian meditations, Chatu Arakha Bhavana, or also called Sabataka Kamatana, the meditations which are needed everywhere, so that the yogis who come here to practice would be able to do so free of danger. Yesterday, Sayadaw summarized these so that we would understand about them. And if we do according to the instructions which Sayadaw gave yesterday, benefits are sure to come. Today, Sayadaw would like to continue to speak for those of us who have come here, for people who practice meditation. He would like to speak about bhavana, the types of bhavana. With sila, we control our physical and verbal behavior. By avoiding misdeeds, we dispel the transgressive kilesas, the defilements that are expressed through our actions and speech. If we have firm sila, then our physical and verbal behavior is pure and clean. And the result is that it is free of fault, blameless. And this is called anavajja in Pali. People who keep sila without pretense, who really do it, are free from behavior which is wild and coarse. Their behavior is civilized, polite, refined, gentle, peaceful, and this is delightful. But this is just the base, the foundation. Sila, morality, only makes our physical and verbal behavior clean. The mind, if it doesn't have energy, if it's not filled with energy, then it will be wild. So we need to make our mind pure and clean. Today, Sayadaw will speak about Citta Visuddhi, purity of mind, the methods for making the mind clean. And in the process of speaking about purity of mind, he will also speak about the practice. There are three trainings: the training of sila, of samadhi, and panya. Sila seka, samadhi seka, panya seka. The trainings of morality, concentration, and wisdom. In order to practice something, first of all, we must learn it theoretically. And then, according to what we know, what we've learned, we have to apply it. And doing this is called seka. It's something to be practiced, learned and then practiced. The first training is the training of sila, or morality. The second is the training of samadhi, or concentration. And the third training is the training of panya, or wisdom. So there are these three kinds of trainings. The training of sila outlines or says, for example, this is not good to do. Avoid doing it. This sort of thing is not good to say. Avoid saying this. And if we avoid these things, which are not good to do, which are not good to say, whether with hiri and ottappa, moral shame and moral fear, or with the feeling of understanding how other people feel when harmed, when we encounter the opportunity to transgress, we don't commit those actions. And in doing this, avoiding the unwholesome actions and speech, the training of sila seka, is complete. we don't transgress. But the mind is still going all over the place. And when it encounters an object that is enticing, that arouses our greed, then greed will arise. When the mind encounters a dissatisfying object, then dissatisfaction will arise. And moha, or delusion, is occurring as long as there's no control over the mind. Moha will be occurring all the time, except for sleep. So moha is present, and these kilesas, this level of defilement, are called pariyotana kilesas, or obsessive defilements. When there's no mental control, then these assault the mind, they attack the mind. So if we don't do anything, an analogy for this is that if we don't do anything to prevent disease from occurring, if we take no preventive measures, and we also don't do anything to make ourselves strong and healthy, then if we do something like eat unsuitable food, we'll get sick easily, and we can even die from eating the wrong thing. Similarly, when we leave the mind without control, because we are beings who live in a world of the senses, the mind tends to go to sense pleasures. It tends to go to objects that it likes, and to be involved in raga, or greed and lust. This happens most of the time. The Buddha knew for himself ways to control the mind. The method of placing the mind on a single object, the method of placing the mind on the objects in one's body. The method of placing the mind on a single object is called samatha bhavana. Now we're practicing Vipassana. In samatha bhavana, one puts the mind on a single conceptual object. Vipassana bhavana is putting our attention, our mind, on the body to observe the presently arising objects that arise within us. This is what Vipassana bhavana is. In one's body, there is mind and there is matter. These are really there. And to know them, the mind and matter, which is really in us, we can't do it just by reading, nor can we do it by thinking or reflecting on what we've read. These are things which need to be experienced directly by practicing. And in regard to practice, the Buddha used the word lakkhana, which means characteristic or distinguishing mark. There are three characteristics he spoke about. The first is sabhava lakkhana, or individual characteristic. The second is sankata lakkhana, or compound characteristic. And the third is called samanya lakkhana, or common characteristic. So he distinguished between these three. The sabhava lakkhana refers to the characteristic that all types of mind and matter have. All nama and rupa have their own characteristic, and this is called sabhava lakkhana, or individual characteristic. It's unique to each type of matter and mind. all types of mental and physical phenomena, all types of mind and matter, they have the characteristic also that they come into existence, they stay there for a moment, and then they pass away. And in Pali, this is called upada. Upada is the arising of something. Titi is the establishment, brief establishment of it. And danga is the dissolution. So they all come together, are there for a moment, and then pass away. So everything that arises has these three periods in time of its existence. It has a start, a beginning, a middle, and an end. This beginning, middle, and end of mind and matter, this is not true nature itself. This is based, it's something that is perceived based on true nature. And it's called sankata lakkhana, or compound characteristic. It's the three time periods in the existence of something. Its start, its establishment, and its ending. All mind and matter, all nama and rupa have common characteristics. They all arise and then pass away. There's nothing that doesn't arise. If something arises, it then passes away. So there's nothing that arises that does not pass away. That's one characteristic. And second, what arises and then passes away, what is born and then dies, can't be called good. It's called dukkha in Pali. That is, it's unsatisfactory because it arises and then passes away. So just as something arises, is born and then dies, so too it is unsatisfactory. And this happens without, there's no possibility of us to control this process. It's completely out of our control. It's not a self. So it is also called anatta. It's a selfless, empty process. The way that mind and matter, nama and rupa, arise and then pass away, the way that they are unsatisfactory, the way that they are uncontrollable, lacking any inherent self, permeates, is spread through all of any given type of mind or matter. It's common to all of them. So it's called samanya lakkhana, or common characteristic. So there are these three types of characteristics. Sabhava lakkhana, sometimes called natural characteristic, also called individual or unique characteristic. And then sankata lakkhana, which is the compound characteristic, the beginning, middle, and end, the fact that it has a beginning, middle, and end. And samanya lakkhana, or common characteristics. And the yogis have to know this according to the theory. Yogis, at the start of practice, because samadhi has not yet risen, because the mind is not yet clean and pure, they don't know about these. They don't know about these three characteristics. They don't know one from the other. Yogis need to understand this. The reason why we don't understand, why we don't know these characteristics at the start, is because the mind is not clean. So first of all, we need to make the mind pure and clean. And to make it pure, we have to clean away, we have to collect the mind by cleaning away or clearing away the obstacles to concentration called nivaranas. The method of samatha does this by placing the attention on a single object. The method of satipatthana does this by observing the presently arising object while it arises. There are these two methods for making the mind clean and pure, for dispelling the obstacles, nivaranas. And among these two methods, we have to start with the second. We need to make the mind clean. In the food that we eat every day, there are 6 kinds of flavors: sweet, sour, hot, sharp or astringent, salty, and bitter. And each one of these flavors can't be pulled out and eaten separately. You can't just eat the flavor. You have to put a bit of food into the mouth and chew it in order to taste the flavor. And also if we drink something that also has flavor, but that flavor can't be extracted from the liquid and swallowed separately. When we bite a piece of food, we chew it with the teeth and the flavor comes out on the tongue, is experienced by the tongue. The Buddha spoke about this as an analogy. If we want to know what something tastes like, we have to eat and see. If we want to know the flavor of something, we have to drink it and see how it is. So we can't just extract the flavor when we eat or drink something. And in the same way, starting yogis cannot just focus on these flavors, these things, these characteristics of mind and matter which are like flavors. The starting yogis can't just focus on these and observe them. If we want to know the flavor of a type of food, of a certain bit of food, we need to put this bit of food into our mouth and chew it. If we want to know the flavor of something liquid, then we need to drink it. And when we do that, when we put the bit of food into the mouth and chew, when we drink the liquid, the flavor of that food or drink will surely reach the tongue. So yogis need to understand this idea. The yogis can't just separate out the natural characteristics which are like flavors. There's a saying that says about practice, which is that only when we note, only when we observe at the moment or while something is happening will we see the true nature or sabhava. Also, only if we observe at the moment something is happening, while something is happening. If we do this, we are sure to see sabhava. So the yogis must understand this idea. At the moment of arising, so at the moment of if we observe at the moment of arising, while something is arising, we will see sabhava, or true nature. In the phrase, at the moment of arising, to speak in terms of sabhava, Dhamma, or the things, natural characteristics that we observe, that means at the moment of seeing, at the moment of hearing, at the moment of smelling, tasting, touching. At the moment there's hardness, at the moment that there's softness, at the moment of flowing, at the moment of solidity, at the moment of heat or cold, at the moment of stiffness, tension, movement. Also at the moment of knowing, at the moment of contacting, at the moment of feeling something. In worldly terms, at the moment of lifting, at the moment of placing, moving and placing, at the moment of bending or stretching the arm, bending or stretching the leg, at the moment of the abdomen rising, at the moment of the abdomen falling. Everything that happens in us can be seen as something that arises. So objects, things, mind and matter that have already occurred, these aren't something that we can observe. When they're past, they're not obvious anymore. And when something hasn't yet arisen, we can't know it by thinking or reflecting. We have to observe what is happening now. That means the rising, the falling, stiffness, sitting, touching, lifting, moving, placing, seeing, hearing, smelling, and so on. We have to observe what is happening in us while it happens. And with what it means to observe, only if we observe at the moment of arising. To observe means that we have to apply energy, mental energy, as soon as the object arises, to make sure that the mind gets there to reach the object. We have to be ready to observe, alert. We can't be slow or sluggish. This type of energy, to get the mind to the object of observation, is called atapa, ardent energy. So we have to be alert and vigilant. There's also the jhanic factor involved of aiming. We have to have the mind properly focused so that the effort is not weak or too much. So when the object arises, there has to be the energy of pushing the mind to the object, and there has to also be the energy or force of aiming. These two factors have to be present in order for observation to occur. And when these two factors, when we apply these two factors, these factors of observation, many, many times, then mindfulness or sati sticks to the object. And mindfulness is arising at that time. Then the mind becomes collected on the object, and this collectedness of the mind on the object is called samadhi, or concentration. And when that happens, because we have observed, because of observation, we will know. Only if there's observation will one know, will one see. So when these factors have been developed, then we're able to see the sabhava lakkhana, or the individual characteristics of mind and matter. Because it is said that we have to observe at the moment of arising, that means that every moment of the time we have to be trying to observe the object. We have to do this observation every second of the time without resting. Reflection cannot know sabhava, or true nature. Take an example. If there is a person who has never eaten an apple, but they've heard apples are cold and sweet, the touch of the apple is cold and the taste of it is sweet. But just hearing about it, that person can't know the taste and the touch of the apple. Only if they bite the apple. When they bite the apple, then they'll know the cold touch. The cold touch is perceived by the tongue, and so is the sweet taste. So only when a person eats an apple will they know its characteristics of being cold and sweet. And similarly, only if we observe while things are arising in us will we know about them. That means to say that we can only know about them if we observe them while they're arising means that they can't be known by other means. They can't be known by reading or thinking about them. One has to observe while they arise. So in us, there are many, many types of sabhava. And to know these, we have to apply mental energy, effort, and we have to apply aiming so that the effort is correct. And if we have these two factors of effort and aiming, then sati and samadhi, mindfulness and concentration, will follow automatically. So if we have these factors of effort and aiming, when we make a fist, we'll know not only the tightness or hardness that is involved in making the fist, but we will also know the intention to make the fist. We aren't just making this up or thinking about it. We know what is really there as it is when we observe. Starting yogis, at the start of the practice, they can't know sabhava. For example, say that we're sitting at the start of our practice and we put our mind on the abdomen to watch the rising and the falling. We put the mind on the abdomen. The abdomen rises. We can't see sabhava. We just follow it. We follow the rising. We follow the falling. But we can't see sabhava. We just keep on trying to follow that movement. And when the samadhi is somewhat weak, the mind starts to be able to observe the shape of the abdomen. And then from time to time, the mind may be able to observe the manner, how the abdomen is in expanded position or a collapsed position. But when we try to follow this rising and falling many, many times, when we try to observe it many, many times, the mind starts to go past these levels of seeing just the shape or seeing the manner of being expanded or collapsed. And when there's stiffness, when the mind falls on stiffness, it knows stiffness. When there's tension, the mind knows the tension. So there are these three levels on which we see their form, the manner, the form or shape of something, the manner, that is the position that it's in, whether it's inflated or deflated, expanded, collapsed, and so on. And then sabhava, which is the true nature. So there are these three levels of seeing, and at first we can't see on the level of seeing the sabhava. We have to just collect the mind so that it becomes clean, and only when the mind is clean do we start to know sabhava. If yogis want to know the sabhava, the true nature that occurs in their body, there's just one thing they need to do, which is to observe at the moment of arising. That means to apply ardent effort with aiming. If we think about why are we observing, what are we looking at, If we think about anything, we're wasting our time. Don't think about anything. Just try to apply ardent effort and aim. If we want to know the sabhava that is in us, the true nature, all the time, except for while we are sleeping, we need to be observing. And when we observe, we name what we observe. Just like a child who is starting to read, learns the letters and says them aloud, and then spells words aloud, C-A-T, cat, and so on. A child has to say the letters, say their names, and so on, in order that they know clearly. And here we label the things that we observe so that we can know them clearly. But we don't say them aloud. We label silently. So for today, this is all that we have time for. Sadhu, 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 sadhu.